Social Security is a foundation for many people. They need it to survive. Without it, they would fall far below the poverty line and need emergency assistance. The only issue here is that the money has been squandered. So there are two options. The government can pay people more money, not cut back on benefits, and raise taxes. Or they can cut what people were expecting and deal with the consequences. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to talk about social assistance programs, we're going to talk about the federal debt, and more. Let's begin. Social Security will begin paying out more than it takes in by 2021. That's just 3 years from now. And come 2034, 16 years away, payouts could be slashed by about 23%, unless something is done. Now, what they're talking about here is what they like to call entitlement reforms. All right? Cutting back, essentially. Based on a projected U.S. population of about 370 million in 2034, that would mean smaller paychecks for 87 million Americans. How small? Try $6,000 a year in today's dollars. Remember that we will see more inflation, we will see bigger devaluations, we will see things becoming more expensive, healthcare and everything else down the line. So the money does less and less as time goes on. That's nothing less than devastating for the estimated 60% of retired Americans who rely on Social Security for at least half of their monthly income. So, we are looking at a demographics problem here, among other things. The demographics clearly showing that not enough people are paying into the system to provide what people need today and tomorrow. So what are they going to do? They can increase taxes. Now, politically, not a good idea. Nobody likes to have more taxes. So this has been pushed down and pushed down further and further, knowing that this problem exists, knowing that they have intergovernmental debt. They've been borrowing from this, and it's been further exacerbating the issue. So let's look. You can see the report, by the way, for yourself from the Social Security Administration's own website. It's long, it's detailed, but it's there if you'd like to see. Of course, the sources are always linked in the description. Looking further into the Market Watch article, there aren't enough young people paying to the system to support Social Security right now. Every person receiving Social Security is supported by nearly 3 workers. This will decline to 2 workers by 2034 and is financed by payroll taxes. In 1970, it was about 4 workers. So you can see what has happened here. The triple squeeze means that one thing for Social Security recipients, big time financial pain. The average person is not prepared, and we know that. We know that they don't have any savings. We know that they have not been investing properly, and their pension funds, unfortunately for those who have it, their pension funds are ultimately losing out. All right. The fact that only 1 in 8 Americans has a pension, and that close to half of all families have no retirement savings at all. I've brought you those statistics before. Now, they're including basically the disability insurance, and I'll show you the statistics on that. There's an estimated 11 million disabled Americans who could face benefit cuts, about 7% as well. So again, they have a couple options here. Do they raise taxes? That's terrible politically, except for those people who will want those Social Security benefits, but it's a growing group of people, no doubt. Or do they cut back? Now, one of the underlying issues here that is not being discussed is the fact that the money is being squandered. It's not about individuals paying into the system, getting money later. Okay, that's been a fraud for a long time. It's a Ponzi. However, what you can tell is that the money going in doesn't seem to be coming out with a profit. Look at all the pension funds, admittedly losing money over and over and over again every year, even though the stock market's rising, even though there has been so-called consumer confidence and everything else. We should be seeing booming times, but it seems as though those with pensions, those people who need the assistance later down the road, won't be getting it. And that's why I advise everybody to take control of your finances, no matter how old you are, no matter if you think that you're getting that pension. Hey, if you're going to get a pension and you want that money, there's nothing wrong with that because you've been paying into that system. You deserve that money. However, if you rely on that money, if you need it, there may be a day when you face the harsh consequences. Not a good thing for a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people who unfortunately are not positioned well. United States federal debt, unfunded liabilities, and the GDP. You can see the unfunded liabilities, this line right here, will be soaring further and further. Even the government's own estimates show 49 trillion. I know it's much higher, but hey, 49 trillion, give or take a few trillion. This is exactly where we're headed into Never Never Land. All right? Federal debt increasing as well, and the GDP right around that same range. The GDP, although it is a fake statistic, even when you use that, you can see that there's no possible way mathematically that they could ever pay this. Unfunded liabilities by source. So you could see that whether it's old age security, Medicare, Medicaid, looking at the federal debt, looking at all of these, and you see, guess what? They are all a burden. It doesn't matter which program you look at here, even if the ones that are not listed that I'm talking about, that each one of these puts a heavier and heavier burden as more people require those assistance. The average individual, if you start to take away from this, immediately they're going to be feeling the burn. Now, if the person's getting, let's say, $1,000 a month, just make some round numbers, and they slash by 20%, okay, they said 23%, but let's go with 20%. Imagine the average individual now has to deal with $800 at the same time. You have to realize that as the time goes on, every single year, things get more expensive. Things are rising in price. Your food starts making up more of your total disposable income. So you start to see that on a pie chart here, this is your disposable income, that maybe food represented a small piece, but now it represents a bigger piece. And you can see that over time, this will only increase. What about electricity bills? Maybe it was, this much of your expenses, now it's this much. And now suddenly, you don't have much left over, if at all. These individuals, they're unfortunately burdened further and further. There's always some expense coming up. And that's not going to be a good thing for a lot of people. We're talking about tens of millions of people. Now look at the annual GDP supposed growth. When you factor in the annual deficit, you see this so-called growth. You see how it's in the negative territory. And we're talking about big money here. Okay? This is why the governments, they simply can't pay back because they don't have any money. Federal debt versus interest payments. I thought this was interesting here. Look at this. You can see federal debt right here, rising, skyrocketing. But look at the interest payments. As a result, and just imagine this, okay? So you're seeing $500 billion, right? Imagine interest rates rising. Those payments become very large, very fast. So they're not going to be able to pay up the interest payments, never mind the debt. Never mind that 20 trillion. That's not going to be paid back ever. We know that. But even the interest payments, which are always coming up, always creeping up, that's what's going to screw them over big time. Just like an average individual. Even the interest is difficult to pay off when you're paying 20% on your interest. Announced versus realized buybacks. I've shown you this before, but it was a new chart. I just wanted to give you this idea here that the amount of buybacks that are in the system here, trying to prop it up, as well as other reasons as well. This is what's been done so far. These are the annualized, the projected for 2018 all together, a record amount of buybacks, nearly $1 trillion worth. This system is really falling apart. And then this here, 10-year Treasury US, 10-year US Treasury yield, the percentage. I thought it was interesting to see all of these projected over this timeline, and it gave me a good idea. First of all, I was noticing the fact that as of this time frame here, particularly after the year 2000, you can see how erratic this becomes. You can see how jagged it becomes on the way down, where you saw that during, let's say, the 1800s, it was a much smoother ride into the 1900s, and then as time goes on, it becomes more and more aggressive. So even though there was all kinds of turmoil all along the way, that this was a big problem here. Then you could see, if you're interested, all the details they put there. And then last but not least, I just wanted to finish off with this, wanted to include it here. This home, believe it or not, okay, it is 848 square feet, okay? 848 square feet, sold in 2 days for $2 million. It is in Sunnyvale, which is in California here, and you could see that this is a record breaking for the square footage, 2,300 and change per square foot. Real estate in certain areas is still booming. The average individual is being pushed further and further out of the ability to pay, ever get a home, at least in the near future. Something has to give. Something really does have to give. I don't know whether it will be a factor of interest rates going up or simply the fact that people keep moving out. Who knows? The vacancy rates in a lot of these cities is very, very low. So it shows me that even if a bunch of people started moving out of the cities, nothing's going to change. And that's quite interesting here. This is one historically just completely nonsensical time frame that we're living in right now. And this is one good example of that. All right, that's it for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, it helps to support this channel. We are now over 90,000 subscribers. So I want to say hello to all the new subscribers out there. And of course, all of those who have been with me since the dawn of time. That's all. If you found the video informative, I know you'll find my books, The Money GPS, and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can flip through these books at Amazon. There are links in the description below. Take care.